On today's show, a few highlights from the earnings call and a whole bunch of your iCave answers, so let's get straight into it. I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. So yesterday was Apple's earnings call for Q3 of 2021. And while we're not going through all the numbers, here are some of the key takeaways. The iPhone sales were up 52% on the same quarter last year. And to put that in context, last year they did release the iPhone SE in that quarter. This year there were no actual iPhone releases. The only thing that happened was actually the purple iPhones, the iPhone 12 and 12 mini in purple, which I guess maybe sold really well, but I have a feeling this is just a general overall iPhone's just doing way better because of the super cycle. Next, the last 4 quarters were the best 4 quarters in Mac history, and the Mac brought in $8.2 billion in just the last quarter alone. Having said that, wearables now make up more revenue for Apple than either the Mac or the iPad. And Apple services, including Apple One, Apple Fitness, all of that kind of thing, up 33% on the previous year. One other big thing though is that Apple is expecting supply constraints, including on the next iPhones and iPads in the next quarter, though they have ordered 90 million iPhones and 100 million A15 chips to be produced, and those A15s are expected to power not just the iPhones but also iPad Air and potentially the iPad Mini 2, depending on which combination of those is released. Also, this graph. There's a very clear trend here, but not only is the last spike way higher than you'd expect from the trend, the subsequent quarters are also way higher than the others. In fact, the quarter after that big spike is almost as tall as the spike from the previous year. That is pretty crazy. And one other bit of news that I think we need to cover is that Apple has been pulled from the NAB Show, the National Association of Broadcasters, which we talked about a couple of shows ago, and why I thought that that might mean that they are releasing a new version of Final Cut. So Apple has had their name removed, it seems, from this show attendees list, and while this might just be that the people attending the show are not attending in an official Apple capacity, I personally think that Apple wants to keep things a little bit more low-key until the time of the show, and then they want to do a big reveal. This kind of fits in with Apple's crackdown on leaks, and it could well just be that they don't want their name out there for the NAB in advance. So we're going to crack on with some iCave answers. Again, we've got quite a lot today. We're going to get through them pretty quickly, so these are not going to be the most in-depth answers I've ever given, but let's get on with it. Bunny Banana asks, iCave answers, will Apple ever make a new MacBook Pro? I'm with you, it is starting to feel that way. However, it looks very much like October is our month now. Please let it be October at the latest. Yuritech asks, iCave answers, if you were to buy a portable Mac in the future, what will you buy? Now, that's a great question because I don't tend to be a massive fan of laptops. I tend to like to do a lot of my work right here where I've got the big screens and all of the space to do things. This is, just in case you're not aware, this is 2 40-inch TVs that I use as my displays for my Mac Mini. The bottom one is 4K, the top one is 1080p. But if I was to buy a portable Mac, it would probably be the same one that my wife has, which is the base entry-level MacBook Air. It's the M1 model, so it's incredibly fast, even though it's only got 7 instead of 8 GPUs. I don't see that that's going to be any kind of handicap to what I would use it for, and in all honesty, the use case for me is generally going to be like writing scripts, emails, probably watching a bit of YouTube, but it would also be a backup for editing, and editing when I'm in the field if I'm out. Say I'm staying away in a hotel somewhere and I need to be able to do a show, that would be much easier than what I did last time, which is packing up the Mac Mini, putting it in my bag and attaching it to the hotel TV screen. But I would also point out that even if Apple comes out with an M2, I would think my intent would probably be to buy the M1 if it's still available and cheaper, because it does absolutely everything that I would need. Next up, Joe asks, iCave answers, when will the iPad, the iPad Nothing, get the iPad Air / iPad Pro like redesign? This one's kind of hard to tell because there's been a couple of different rumours. The first one is that the current iPad is going to get the iPad Air 3 design language, which basically means a slightly thinner chassis. It means a laminated display, and it means a slightly bigger display. So it's 10.5 instead of 10.2 inches, and that's what we're expecting. So If they are going to redesign it, I doubt they would use that design for just 1 year, so I would think we're probably a couple of years out on that still at the moment, and I think very much like the iPhone SE, it's going to keep that design for a lot longer than any of the kind of more mainstream products will. Lit8 asks, I gave answers, why has Apple not changed the iMac emoji? So I would just say that obviously we haven't had all of the iMacs updated yet. The emoji that we have for the iMac looks quite iconic as an iMac, and actually that isn't an iMac emoji, I think it's a desktop computer emoji, and because of the way that Unicode works, all of the different companies that implement this emoji software get to kind of design their own emojis, so I would assume that the Android version is not an iMac. And Lit8 asks, I gave answers, do you think that Apple can turn the Pro Display into a proper TV with an A13 Bionic? Now, I think we covered this a couple of days ago, but the A13 Bionic, yes, it's absolutely powerful enough because we have an A12 in the current Apple TV, but I just don't think it's something that Apple will want to do. I think that that chip is designed to take care of things like image processing, doing the FaceTime blur in the background, microphones, blah, blah, blah. All that kind of stuff, I don't think it's going to be doing anything along the lines of running its own operating system, whether that be Apple TV or anything else. And Lit8 asks, I gave answers, what do you think the iPad mini will cost? So assuming this is not getting a mini LED display right away, the current iPad mini starts at 64GB for $399. I think this could be maybe $450. The iPad Air did go up $100 when it was introduced. I think $450 is a pretty fair price. It sits right between then the iPad Air and the base iPad, but obviously with a little bit more power than the base iPad. So that would be my guess. $450. Bruce Grubb asks, I was reading about the Mac 86 and Mac 286 coprocessor NUBOS cards in the late 1980s, which became the Orange Micro PCI coprocessor card. They allowed you to run an x86 machine in the 68,000 Macs. If Apple revives this old idea, which do you think would be the main CPU in the Mac Pro, M1 or Xeon? Now this is a weirdly specific one, but we have talked about having a hybrid of Apple Silicon and Intel before. I think that the M1 would be the one that kind of controls everything because it is the snappier one for running the operating system and all that sort of thing. But I do think it would be useful to have those Intel chips there potentially to be able to offload stuff that is Intel native, but also to be able to offload like high-powered rendering if you need the extra grunt that Intel has at the moment. But I don't think it's going to be long for Apple to catch up with Apple Silicon. Travis Smith asks, I gave answers, should Apple come out with a 2-in-1 laptop? I really kind of hope not, because I think the 2-in-1s tend to be quite compromised. They don't tend to be a particularly good laptop or a particularly good tablet, so I think that is probably a poor choice. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to it because I'm sure that Apple would do a really good job of it, but at the same time, it's not something I'm crying out for because I don't think it's going to be as good as having those individual items. The iPad is an insanely good tablet. The Mac is an insanely good value computer. Put them together, what have you got? Insane value. I like it. And Travis Smith asks, would it be cool if Apple created a stick computer that plugs into an HDMI port? Now, I think we're definitely more likely to get a Apple TV kind of stick computer before we get a Mac stick computer, but I mean, I love the idea. I just think that people are already complaining about a lack of ports. You ain't going to get many on an HDMI stick. Ryan Ballinger asks, I gave answers, do you think that the M1X Mac Mini will have HDMI 2.1 compatibility? I do, and I think that the reason for that is that we may well get 4K at 120Hz. I think that ProMotion coming to the Macs would be a really cool thing. Obviously, most TVs aren't capable of doing that level of changing refresh rates. However, I think it would be great to put 120Hz into the Mac Mini and then put actual ProMotion into the MacBook Pros. But again, no particular intel on this. That's just what I think might happen. Now, if you haven't already, don't forget to check out iCversary. It's our 6-hour live stream that we're doing on August 15th. Make sure that you subscribe to it. Link is right up there. We've got a pretty awesome lineup of guests already. Looking to get some more. It's going to be pretty great. So please sign up for that. Make sure that you just tick the notification for it. And thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.